of 100 people.
Thank you. So my name is Mira, and I'm going to tell you how we use R packages at work. So what kind of work is this? I'm a data scientist at INWT Statistics. We are a statistical consultancy based in Berlin, and we analyze data for our clients, for example, from customer relationship management, online marketing, or survey results. But the most important thing is that we do most of this stuff in R. And we build an R package in virtually all our projects, even in pure analysis projects, or when we just build a shiny dashboard, it all lives in a package. Why that? You may wonder why we don't just source our functions from a file or define them at the top of our scripts. Well, I'm going to tell you why and how we do this to get the most out of it. The most obvious reason to write an R package is probably that it makes it very easy to share your code with others, for example, within the team, but even with the customer, or customers sometimes are happy to have the package at the end of the project and use the code in the future. And if you're very proud of the code you wrote, you can even share it with the whole world by publishing it on eRum or GitHub. But well, as soon as you share your code with others, you need, of course, a good documentation so they know how your functions work. And there's a very useful package, as you see, Roxygen 2. You just add these so-called Roxygen comments at the top of your function definitions, and then when you build the package, you get a nice-looking, well-structured documentation, as you see it on the right, just as you know it. And to be honest, I'm often myself very happy about the documentation I wrote some weeks or months ago, because I don't remember how my functions work after some time. So another very useful thing about R packages is the so-called RCMD check. You just press one button, here the check button in RStudio, and R performs some very useful checks of your functions. For example, it checks whether your functions are self-contained. That means that all the objects your function uses must come either from their arguments or must be created within the function, but the function must not use any object from outside, from a global environment or something. And it's very good to check this, because functions that are self-contained are much less error-prone. And the RCMD also checks whether your documentation is complete and many more very useful things. Well, a flawless RCMD check result and a good documentation are already very large steps towards a good package, but it's maybe not enough, because you also want to be sure that your functions work the way they should. So we always write so-called unit tests, which are tiny tests that check our functions in very specific situations and test whether the result they return is correct. There's again a very useful package in this context called testbed, and you can use this package to include your own written tests into your package. And then every time you do the RCMD check I just mentioned, all the tests are executed. And if you broke something, you will notice immediately. Well, I said that packages are very useful to work together in a team, but you all know that when you try to work on the same files with multiple persons at once, it's very easy to break something. What happened? Okay. And this is where version control comes into play. We use Git and GitHub to solve this problem, and it even allows us to go back in time and see what exactly our code looked like, for example, 4 weeks ago. And if you're not convinced that you need version control yourself, we weren't either in the beginning. We thought, no, we don't need this. We're just so few people some years ago, but now we can't imagine work life without it. We are very happy with it, and we use version control even in very small projects with only 1 or 2 people. Well, doing all this, we already feel pretty safe, because we don't need to be afraid that we deliver any wrong code to our customers, but sometimes our code just still looked a bit ugly, so we decided to come up with our own INWT style guide. We also published on our bloggers. We have several rules. For example, we don't allow lines longer than 100 characters, or we use lower camel case for object names, and many more rules. But the most important point is probably that you just find one style guide that everyone agrees on and that you stick to in your team, so your code just looks tidy and consistent. If you have any questions or want to talk to my colleagues and me about clean code, packages, documentation, or testing, just meet us at the coffee break or send us an email. Thank you.